take a trip down memory lane, okay? You started Faithpreneur Weekend and it wasn't a thing before. It wasn't something that you said, okay, yeah, you know what? We're going to do this and this is going to be a movement. We're moving like into the decades, into the generations with this. Tell us the story of how this started. What happened?
Jesus got a way of setting you up. So if we really want to go down memory lane, let's go all the way back to when I started doing the VIP prayer call, right? Which has become the Faithpreneur VIP prayer call. When I started that years ago, 10 years to be exact, and it was at a conference that I had come to learn, to grow, ended up serving and being a part of the movement. And then ultimately now, how many years later, being the celebrity guest host. But the prayer was an opportunity for me to just collaborate with other people walking around like, oh my gosh, this is too much information. Like, I've never been in a room with all these Black people with brilliance. I don't even understand what to do next. I don't know what program. And I said, well, instead of wandering around here in the wilderness, let's get together for prayer every morning before we go to the sessions, before the conference starts, and ask God for discernment. Ask Him for clarity on what we should be doing, who we should be doing it with, and how we should be executing our gifts. So really, in real-time prayer, writing the vision and making it plain. But we were praying the vision and making it plain, right? We were asking for God's help. When I got back home, people were like, oh, what time is prayer? I'm like, what do you mean, what time is prayer? The conference is over. But I was convicted in that moment, and I can remember how that went down. I was like, prayer, how can I commit to this? I can't do it every day. I'm like, well, maybe every Saturday. And it was just in my spirit, it was like, okay, well, why don't we just get together every Saturday morning and we'll pray? And when I tell you, there might have been a handful of people on the call that grew to some more people telling people, and I didn't publicize it. It wasn't publicized on social media. It was just the people that were there. We had a little system where I would send them an email or a text. They would know to get on the call. So fast forward from that, just staying faithful, like it was something that I did. I didn't see it as a part of business. I didn't see it as a part of this platform that I was building. It was like, we're gonna pray, because prayer is common and natural to me. We need prayer, so we're just gonna pray. And we moved on with the prayer call. I'm thinking I'm building this part of the brand, and I'm launching this, and I'm building this product, and I'm doing this all along in the background. What I thought was the background, I'm still, every Saturday, we're praying. Every Saturday, this community is growing. Every Saturday, we're building. And then we get to the point in 2014 where I'm like, we're going to launch Destiny Designers University. I know what the what. I'm like, I protected my intellectual property. I was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And it kept coming to me. And I'm like, okay, but what is it? Then I started listening to everybody else tell me what it should be, right? And you should do this, you should do that, you should do the other. And I'm like, okay, we launch it. And it was the most amazing launch of Destiny Designers University. And it was the thing that God gave me to do, which is hilarious because I complicated it. He gave it to me nice and smooth. He was like, here you go, daughter. And I spent the entire day filming and broadcasting. And I went and then complicated it when it's the very thing we're coming back to full circle. So hold that thought.
Okay, so go ahead.
So when we launched Destiny Designers University, we launched as a training and development platform where you graduate to the next best version of who you are by turning inspiration into results. So we're moving along, we're building out what we thought it should be, what I thought it should be, because I'm listening to other people tell me what to do. And I wasn't feeling settled in my spirit. Something was just not connecting because God didn't give me the confirmation in my spirit. So sidebar, God speaks to all of us. We just have to be able to recognize His voice. And we have to be able to recognize the confirmation that He gives us in our spirit. And I was still growing through that stage in my faith development. So I was second guessing. And I was like, no, I don't know. And we launched and moved forward. Guess what? The whole site crashed. About a year or two into it, just gone. And I was like, what? Now, typically there's a backup. Typically, the person who was hosting it would have the backup. And he was like, I don't even understand what happened. So I was all upset. I'm thinking, oh, the enemy is busy. He trying to take me down again. Like, oh my gosh. And sometimes it's not the minion at work. God doesn't allow certain things to happen because it's not what he ordained. And I can see clearly now that that wasn't the way he wanted. He gave me what it was, but I still didn't understand it. So I was complicating and adding layers from other people, and that's why it couldn't stand. So we continue to move forward. In 2015, my grandmother, the matriarch of my maternal side, passed away December 15, 2015. That was a pivotal moment because my grandma, my everything. And she was 98 years young, and we were blessed to have her for that long. But I was a spoiled brat. I want my grandma. And I wasn't ready for her to transition, even though I know where she was going. So that was the impetus for me to finish my book, because I was sitting on that, had pre-launches, had people order the book wasn't finished. So my husband looked at me, he was like, oh, I guess this will be the inspiration to really have you complete this project. And we announced that January that we were going to actually have the launch of my book on her birthday, the eve of her birthday. So August 16, 2016, Action, Despite the Distractions, 7 Life Lessons on How to Thrive and Live Your Destiny Now was launched, sell out, standing room only, book launch, which was a whole testimony in and of itself. You have to read the book because I actually added in to the book to understand what happened leading up to that. Like, God has been exercising my faith, something serious, right? To really understand the scripture he gave me in the process of losing the book and being able to generate the book in time for the launch. Luke 1:37, for with God, nothing shall be impossible. So we were able to do that launch, and
let me stop you for a second, because you kind of skipped over like a major chunk of a faith move. Just, trying to slide it in, okay, but there's something in there that took place that I think speaks directly to how you don't walk by sight, but you walk by the word. So please share what happened with the book. See, I know what happened with the book.
You know what happened with the book.
Please share.
Oh my goodness. So when I made the announcement that we were going to actually have the book launch, I'm in my mind saying it's going to be this date. I was actually booked to do a speaking engagement with the book in the beginning of the year, but I didn't have the book finished, and I started panicking. And you can't trust God and panic, right? Because you can't pivot if you're panicked, as my big sister Linda would say. But one of my dear friends, one who's actually helping me to power Faithpreneur Weekend 2020, Lethea Owens, she was like, well, just give out the first chapter of the book as the promo as you're leading up to your actual launch date. And I was like, it was like a weight was off. So I scurried and made sure that was edited and ready to go. But time kept moving, right? The months started going. I'm like, okay, the book is coming out on August 16th. We're doing the pre-launch. We're doing the pre-sales. Everybody is excited. We're booking venues. We have all this stuff together. And towards the end of July, I'm finishing up. I'm thinking I'm at the last leg now. We're getting ready to make sure the edits are done, the layout. And I'll never forget the night I'm working on the book. And I'm like, okay, God gave me a download on how I was going to put in these little action items that people were going to take away. He gave me the distraction alerts, and I'm like scurrying and I'm writing all this stuff in. And I'm like, okay, let me close it down. I saved it, closed. I was like, oh, I forgot one thing. Go back in, press the computer. No book. I'm like, wait. Like, it was back to the skeleton. It was back to just the chapter days. I was like, wait. So I'm literally sitting at the computer like, okay, let me just calm down. Let me restart, because I'm married to a techie. My whole house is rigged. Like, I know this thing is safe. So I'm like, there's no book. So now the panic starts to set in. And I'm like, I remember going up the stairs in slow motion, like just trying to get up. The first one I did go upstairs, like slow motion, like I couldn't even breathe. So I'm like waking up my husband. At this point, it's like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, so he's like turning over, because he sleeps so hard. He turned over like, what's going on? I was like, I couldn't even get a book. He's like, what is wrong with you? I was like, no. Like literally I couldn't breathe. He was like, the what? So So when he finally figured out I'm saying book and he's seeing that I'm totally flushed, like I'm like in panic mode, he runs downstairs and he's like, okay, what'd you do? And I'm like, there's the file. Like I'm pointing, I'm like, there's the file. So he's looking and he's working quietly. He was like, this is the file? You saved it, right? And I'm like, yes. So like I'm heaving. I'm like, okay, at this point, he's going to be able to find it. Like he has to be able to find the book. He's looking. He's like, babe, did you save it? I was like, of course I saved it. You know, isn't there an auto save and a backup on top of me saving it? He was like, it's not here. I'm like, you cannot. Like in that moment, I saw sun, moon, and stars. I felt like, I don't even know how to describe, like everything was coming out of my body. Like somebody had dragged the breath out of my body. I was like, what do you mean it's gone? He said, babe, I'm sorry. Like I've searched everything. I'm looking on the server. I'm doing all the backup. There's nothing here. My entire book was gone. Mind you, we're less than a month away from the launch that people have pre-ordered, purchased, and prepared for. I said, no. I couldn't even, it was like Glory. For those of you who saw the movie Glory, like that one tear just got stuck right there. It couldn't even fall. Because I was just like, and he was trying to hold me as I was trying to breathe. Like, I don't know when I fell asleep. I don't know how I fell asleep because I was like, this has got to be a nightmare. When I woke up the next morning, I was like, is this real? Did this really happen? Like literally, we're 3.5 weeks away from the launch of the book. And I had no book. So I got up and I'll never remember. I just turned to my Bible with my hands shaking. I just picked up the Bible and I didn't even tell the team. I didn't even know what to say. And God sent me right to Luke. And I went right to the scripture, for with God, nothing shall be impossible. And I was like, okay, Jesus. All right, well, you gave it to me before. You're going to have to give it to me again. I had to travel that weekend to speak in Florida. I'll never forget. I'm on the plane and I'm typing and crying and typing and crying and typing and crying. I'm like, Lord, what was that part? And I'm typing and crying. Gotta get to Florida. My father's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I lost my book. And I'm like typing and crying. And I went to my girlfriend's wedding and then another event. I came back, I'm still typing and crying. And I'm like, Lord, just help me. And he started bringing it all back. And I'm like, okay, I'm on a plane. I sleep on planes. I don't stay up on the plane. I'm like a baby. As soon as I'm in a moving vehicle, plane, anything, I'm out. I was up. Right. So by the time I got back to New York, I was able to piece together the manuscript, and God gave me some additional things that I didn't have before. I said, okay, now we're 2 weeks away from the launch. People have ordered books. People have purchased books. And I'm like, okay, all right. Now I got to figure out getting it edited. So that was a whole process, trying to make sure that the edits were done, getting more than 2 eyes on it. So now we're down to a week. And guess what, family? Book hadn't been laid out. There's no layout for the book. Books have to be laid out for people to read it in a certain way. So now, one of my other girlfriends who meant well, she was like, girl, maybe you might want to push back your launch date because people are paying for this book. They're waiting for it. You don't want to have a launch and you don't have anything to show. And she wasn't trying to be negative. She honestly was just trying to protect my integrity, protect what happened to me in the marketplace. And I'm like, thank you, sis. But I just knew I was going to push forward. Like there was no stopping. That's the kind of faith that I'm honoring with Faithpreneur Weekend with my grandmother. Like when God said it, that's it. So we kept going and my mother called me. She said, I know you're not changing the date. I said, no, mommy, no, I'm still working. So that's me and Jesus. My stomach's in knots. I'm crying and praying. I got the whole church praying. They were like, woo, what's going on? I started sending emails out that Sunday night before the book launch. So I'm just going to fast forward. Sunday night before the Tuesday of the book launch, I had no book. I'm sending emails all weekend. I'm looking for a miracle. Are you my angel? I need somebody to lay out this book. No call back. I got the referral from that same girlfriend who told me about pushing back for sake of what was going on. No response. I'm like, what am I gonna do? I started going in and doing searches on how to do layouts yourself. I started trying to figure out, because I kept moving. I'm like, well, God, I'm not gonna just sit here and throw my hands up in the air. I'm gonna keep working. You direct me, you lead me. Monday morning, I get a call back from the woman. She was like, what's going on? I got your message, but I wasn't working on the weekend. Explain to me what's happening? I said, oh, I have a book launch on Tuesday. She said, Tuesday? Today's Monday. She was like, that's impossible. Anybody that publishes books knows that a layout takes at least a week. And if they're rushing, maybe 3 days, right? And that's really, you're paying for their extra time to get things done. She was like, when do you need it? And I'm like, well, the launch is on tomorrow evening. She was like, well, let me see what you're talking about. Now that I knew was God, right? Because she could have said, girl, bye, good luck, because that's just not gonna happen. Okay. But if she was all in another country, in Canada, and she said, all right, send me what you have. Let me see if there's anything that I can do, but I can't guarantee it. By the time I sent her the manuscript, she sent back, she said, I think I understand what you're doing. And I just happen to have a free day today, so I will work on your project. Here's my price, blah, blah, blah. At that point, I was ready to pay $1 million because it was like, look, like I need to get this laid out. And she started working on it, and she caught the vision of what it was that I needed in the book. And that was all God. He will place the people that will be a part of him getting the glory, because nobody can take credit for this book but Jesus. Trust and believe. Everybody that worked on it, they didn't even know how they were working on it. They were like, well, how is this? She didn't even understand how she was able to do it. Meantime, the printer calls me. I thought you said you have a book launch on Tuesday. We have no manuscript in the house. We haven't started printing. Like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to have your book tomorrow. And I'm like, whoo, I'm still holding my belly. I'm like, whoo, Jesus. I'm calling all the prayer warriors. I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna happen. I literally did not know how this is gonna happen. My husband looking at me, the kids are watching me. My sister's like, oh Lord, how is this going to happen? The book signing is tomorrow. We have negotiated with the venue. People are showing up. Let me tell you how God works. Not only did the woman finish the layout for me, not only were we simultaneously double checking edits, not only did the printer say, just make sure you have something in-house first thing in the morning, and we'll see if we can just get a few copies of something out. But he was a man of God, or is a man of God. And he was like, just remain calm, we'll see what we can do. He came in early that morning. He saw the manuscript was in his box at like 4 or 5 in the morning. He came in early, he shut down his business, and they started printing the first 200 copies of Action Despite the Distraction while we were preparing for the book launch. I was going to get my hair fixed that night at the venue doing a walkthrough. I'm running around trying to get last minute stuff, and we were at the venue and still didn't have the books in hand. He's calling to tell me it's ready. My mom and my sister had to drive from Long Island. They weren't planning to come into the city driving. They drove from Long Island to Brooklyn to pick the books up hot off the press and bring them as the event had already started. When I say the tears were in my sister's eyes, she was texting me holding the book. She's like, you did it, you did, God did it, look, look, look. And that moment, nobody on this planet could tell me there's not a God. Nobody on this planet could tell me that God is not true to his word. Nobody on this planet can tell me that if you exercise your faith, that my God won't bring you through. He brought me through in that moment. Nobody believed it could happen. People that were showing up didn't know the behind the scenes story until I told the story, right? They didn't know that they were walking in with boxes of books while the event balloons up, step and repeat up. I'm in chair getting makeup done. Folks are getting hors d'oeuvres passed around. It was only God. I had no book less than 3 weeks before, no layout less than 5 days before, and no book in hand and printed until that morning. So when I tell you, I know I serve a God who can do all things but fail, I know I serve a God that can do all things but fail. And that's the kind of faith. Because people look like, well, it didn't happen yet, or why didn't it happen, or it's not turning out the way. It's not my business how God is going to do it. It's my business to be obedient.
That's right.
So this has been a journey. I've had all kinds of sacrifices, lost money, lost friends, all sorts of things because people didn't understand the vision. I had to make sacrifices. I've had attacks on myself, my family, my children. Like, so you don't get out of this thing called life free. You have to pay the price, right? If you give your life as a living sacrifice, there's some things that come with it. But through it all, I pressed. Through it all, I've pushed. Through it all, I've prayed. Through it all, I praise, because I know God has the final say. So no matter how long it takes, no matter what it looks like, I don't doubt God for a second. He's the same God of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So he brought me through that. And guess what? Next year, I was like, well, let's go ahead and have a legacy celebration for Grandma in heaven. So we did this wonderful celebration, interviewed my aunt, interviewed one of our Faithpreneurs, Winnie Birch, who now we have an award in her name. And I said, well, how do we continue this? And of course, I don't think small. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You know, it's always big. I was like, let's have a Faithpreneur weekend. And here's how God set me up. So remember when I mentioned that prayer call? Remember when I mentioned how many years was faithfully doing? I had no idea that was the foundation for everything that was being built. And when I started using the word faithpreneur, because it just resonated in who my target audience is, I never apologized for talking about God. I had many people tell me, oh, you shouldn't talk about God. You might turn people off. You might not get any clients because people are real sketchy about faith. I said, well, then they're not my audience, because I'm unapologetic about my faith. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur. So faithpreneur was something that just resonated. I said, wow. I called my attorney and he was like, whoa, I like that too, because I already own 3 other trademarks. I was like, let's trademark Faithpreneur. And I didn't realize that what God was setting up, even as I was writing the book, even as I was referencing a movement, I had no idea what it was going to entail. So this opportunity to see Faithpreneur Weekend begin was God setting in motion this annual gathering of an ecosystem of faithpreneurs that are trained through Destiny Designers University as the training and development platform, where my faculty are the same faculty who share during the conference but go deeper in subject matter expertise through the university. That's the model that God was creating, that I complicated. He gave me content the day one launch. And then I started listening to the noise of the world. I started listening to well-intentioned individuals who didn't understand the vision, who didn't understand the assignment, not for any fault of their own. It wasn't given to them. So I had to hear it and listen. And the first time we finished Faithpreneur Weekend 2K18, I was like, it's a wrap. And everybody talking about next year. I'm like, next what? Look, I'm barely surviving the birthing of this here conference, and y'all talking about 2K20 or 2K19. I rolled my eyes so hard, I'm surprised that the balls just didn't fall out. I was like, nah. No sir, no ma'am. But when God has an assignment, he has an assignment. I had no idea he was setting me up and that he would trust me enough to do this work, to stand boldly in faith, to understand that there's some things that the people of God have not been doing in business to help them accelerate their compensation in the marketplace. There's some things that we need to fix so that we can create generational wealth, that we can talk about leaving an inheritance for our children's children, that there is some work to do. And if you don't know better, how can you do better? But if you have the training and skills and that development, it can accelerate your growth, your opportunity, and your example. I want us to be testimonies. I don't want us to keep talking about, oh, how hard it is. Lord, nobody knows. Yeah, nobody knows the trouble we all see, right? But the good news is the word of God will strengthen us so that we don't have to stay dwelling there, that we pass through the valley of Becca, right? We pass through the challenges, because those challenges are designed to help build your faith, are designed to help you rely on nobody else but God, right? When you have an assignment like this, it can only be God, right? When you're thinking about what you're doing and it seems so impossible, we serve a God who specializes in the impossible. So it's our job to unblind our faith by taking action, to move forward by the doing, not just being hearers of the word, but doers of the word, so that we can execute what it is that God has already predestined and preordained for our divine assignment. And if we can be in alignment with our divine assignment, that's when the real beauty of our faith gets to be manifested for other men to see and to want to know who God is for them. You don't have to borrow somebody else's testimony for all your days. Develop your own. Trust God. Try God. Try God. He's all right. He might not come when you want him, but believe me, as the old hymn says, he'll be there right on time. And everything is conspiring towards your good. So now let's go back again to the prayer call. All these years, I wasn't even tracking how many years we were doing it. It was just this past year that people who have been apart for all these years, like that, Stacie, you really need to go back and check, because I've been watching you for 8 years, 9 years, 7 years. I'm like, it's been that long? And I started going back, and that's how I was able to realize that we had passed the 10-year mark. I'm like, whoa, look at God. Look at how he wanted me to speak clearly to my Faithpreneur audience. Look at how he developed Destiny Designers University, not just to be a general training and development platform, not just to be a general place where you come for inspiration and motivation, but he strategically wanted it to be the training and development platform for Faithpreneurs. And that Faithpreneur weekend, while I thought it was just this great idea, he was planting that seed in me for a reason. Because he wanted the Faithpreneur weekend to be a transformational weekend experience that celebrated legacy starting on the Thursday, and understanding that core of how we honor the people in our lives who prayed for us before we were even born, who prayed for their children's children, and we get to be the manifestation of the answers to those prayers. So that legacy gala is always going to be a special moment where I honor my grandmother and members in my family as we uphold that legacy of faith. And as we move as a family to create that generational wealth, the wealth that she could have created had she had the training of a Faithpreneur weekend, had she understood how to leverage relationships, resources, and revenue that nobody taught her when she opened her business and had to subsequently shut it down because she wasn't making any money. And then honoring the people in my life who has touched my life in some way. So it was fitting for me to start the first year with my mentors, the people that opened up doors and opportunities, the people that poured into me, from the Les Browns to the Dr. George Frazier, to the Linda Clement, to Dr. Joel P. Martin, to Dr. Emma Frazier Pendleton, to Vera Moore, to Susan Taylor, the people that I've been blessed to share platform and stage with, to learn from, to sit at their feet and understand that success leaves clues. And that you honor legacy by how you learn and you can apply the wisdom of the elders. And then the Friday Training and Development All-Day Faith in Action Conference, it's not play. It's not theory. It's not just pontificating because we're so brilliant. No, it's the assembly of the brilliance that I'm able to curate with the people in my front row. Relationships, once again. So the experts, I don't need to be the expert on everything. Why? I know all the brilliant people. I just bring them together. So my experts on revenue, my experts on relationships, and the different ways in which you can diversify what you have, and resources. What things can you use to automate, to really be in control of how you're tracking your progress, and the things that can help you be able to produce the results that you want. And of course, honoring your temple. We can't run around here trying to save the world, and then we're not healthy. We're not taking care of ourselves. So the Honor Your Temple bonus segment, that was to keep me honest, honey, because, there were years I was suffering in rehab for Snicker bars and chicken wings. Yes, Lord. But deliverance will help you to build stamina for your journey, to just drink more water, to move something. And the more you do is the more encouraged you are by your results. Because I'll tell everybody, I can't stand to work out, but I sure do love that the scale goes down. I might not have loved water. I thought ginger ale was a good alternative because there was some ginger in it, but drinking my water helps my skin. So there are things that we do together as a community that we don't have to worry about somebody judging us or looking at our mistakes. What? Let the one without sin cast the first stone. Everybody has gone through, and if you haven't gone through, just keep living. That's what we say. There are things that you're going to experience, and being in fellowship and community helps us to be stronger in our resolve to build these legacies, in our resolve to be profitable, in our resolve to become cash flow positive. It starts with the first step, right? And I talk about that in my book. It's not about being perfect. It's about getting started so you have something to perfect. That's my life lesson too. If I was waiting for Destiny Designers to be perfect, we'd still be waiting to launch. If I was waiting for the first iteration of Action Despite the Distraction to be completely grammatical error-free because of the pace in which we had to get everything done, I would have never done it. And I had to do a rewrite, and we had to edit. And everybody I said apologies to, they were like, girl, You talking about a couple little typos? The content in this thing is so rich that I didn't even notice. I didn't even see it. I was like, wow, praise God. Because we get caught up in our own mind of what we think things should be instead of allowing ourselves to be the vessel by which God is flowing through and giving those blessings. So I'm just excited that Faithpreneur Weekend has become this opportunity for us to come together in community, to learn and grow, to become the best version of who we can be by turning inspiration into results. So not just being inspired by the moment, but actually turning it into results. And we close it out with that very same prayer call. That very same prayer call that is now something that we started promoting in the last 4 years or so, publicly on social media and sending it out, that we can join in and have that prayer call live for our Faithpreneur VIP prayer breakfast on the Saturday morning. And it's a hallelujah time. It's a time where we can celebrate the downloads, the witty ideas, the transformation, the learning that we've experienced the day before, and put us in a position where we're now able to be that testimony, and that I get to do another set of awards that day. We started our international corporate Faithpreneur Pearl Award, named after my grandmother. Last year was Cint Marshall, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks and one of my strongest prayer warriors, big sisters. She will fight for me. And I thank God just for the blessing she is. And this year we get to honor Cecilia Nelson Hurt from L'Oreal USA. And we implemented the Faithpreneur Witty Birch Award to honor one of our Faithpreneurs. Winnie was with me from the beginning. From the launch of Destiny Designers University, she was part of the first class that we had, and to be able to solidify her legacy above it all, and to be able to show what it means to really stand in faith. What else can I say but thank you, Jesus, for allowing me this opportunity to work with the best of the best, to have a team that is able to see the vision, that lock arms and aims with me, and like, we see it. We see the long haul, where I wish I could pay them all $1 million each, but they're giving me $1 million worth of their brilliance to say, we see the long-term vision, and we're here with you because this is about the work that God is doing, that we're all on the other side of money, right? That's not the issue. We're not chasing money. We're chasing options, and we're chasing the ability to use what God gives us to create more opportunity for his people in the kingdom. So that's the long story of Faithpreneur Weekend, and why this Faithpreneur Weekend 2020 experience is going to be unlike anything we've seen before, because of everything we learned in 2K18, everything we've learned in 2K19, and finally me being obedient that clearly this movement is not ending, it is growing, because we are looking to create 1 million cash flow positive faithpreneurs with God's direction and grace.
That is awesome. Okay, well, now, and let me ask you this, and this, of course, is phenomenal. You were on the flow, and I love everything you said. And it just, I mean, it really encapsulates what it is to be a faithpreneur. Because whereas all of these things happen, I mean, down to your book being erased, gone, nothing, and you happen to trust God, down to just as the event itself was going on, you still didn't have the book in your hand, and you still went on, you still went forward. This is what we have to do as faithpreneurs, regardless of what we see, regardless of what we're hearing, even from the professionals in the industry that are telling you it's impossible. With God, all things are possible. So this ministered to not only you, it ministered to them as well, for them to see how else could this come together but by God. You know,
only God.
I'm excited about this. I'm excited about the growing movement. I'm excited about the Winnie Birch Awards. You know, it's an amazing thing. Everything that is attached to Faithpreneur Weekend, you know, it is something that goes beyond just the event, just the weekend. You know, I didn't know when I went to FPW2K18 that we would be now continuing still, except after 18. It's like there's no way that you couldn't continue. There's no way that you could not continue. So congratulations, to God be the glory. Okay, so I do want to take this time now, and this was great. I mean, you just made my job extremely easy. I want you to talk about now who the weekend is for specifically.
Faithpreneur Virtual 2020 experience is for that person that says, I identify as a faithpreneur. A faithpreneur is a faith-based entrepreneur with a fidelity to God in organizing, managing, and operating their business, and or a faith-based professional looking to add another stream of income to their personal economy. They understand that they love their job, but they know that their job might not supply them with all the revenue they need for the retirement that they desire. So adding in those additional verticals is important. And they realize that you want to leverage your relationships, your resources, and revenue to create sustainable legacies and become cash flow positive. And most importantly, the person that comes to our Faithpreneur Weekend Experience 2020 is saying, Dr. Stacie, I'm tired of doing free. I want to go from free to feed. I want to go from confusion to clarity. I want to go from frustration to implementation. I am ready for what is for me right now. And I want to be a good steward of what it is that God has given me to be able to position myself in the marketplace and be compensated for it unapologetically. So I'm looking to work with that person who is that emerging business, who's been praying on, well, what is it that I really want to do? God, how do I use these skills and transfer them? How do I create this product, this service? Help me, Lord, to write the vision and make it plain. Or my established business who is saying, Lord, I'm not seeing any profit. I've been doing this for a long time. And I get all sorts of great compliments and people think that my website looks pretty and my business cards shine bright, but I need some money. I need to understand how this business can generate income. How can I sustain it? How can I put the pieces in place so that I can be cash flow positive, that I can be in a position to take advantage of things that come, whether it's a government EIDL loan or a PPP, because I have done my work in due diligence in being able to show myself approved for the blessings that you have in store for me. So come on and join the movement. Be a part of 1 million cash flow positive faithpreneurs. For such a time as this, the world needs us to say yes, to stand up and be the aspirin for the headaches that we're seeing, to be the answers for the problems that we're suffering from, and be the solutions for the peace and the healing that this world needs.